Hi, it's Michael from Fujifilm. I'm doing a little walkabout in the neighborhood to try out 3 new products that Fujifilm just announced that are ideal for taking casual photographs anywhere you want. 2 of them are lenses and 1 is a camera body. Let's talk some more inside. All right. At the end of January 2021, there was a huge day of multiple announcements from Fujifilm, and 3 of them were for the X series line of products. I'm going to start with the smallest of those first. This is the new XF27mm f2.8 R lens. Look at this little tiny pancake thing, okay? Now I did say new. There has been an existing 27mm f2.8 pancake lens for many years. But the number one thing is the addition of those 2 letters WR, which stands for weather resistant. The old one was not weather resistant. Secondly, on the body design is the old one has a focus ring, but aperture had to be controlled by the front wheel on whatever camera it was attached to. The new 27mm 2.8 has a focus ring in the front, but now a dedicated f-stop ring as well, with a locking A for auto position. So that's something really nice. Okay. Optically they're the same, and you can see size-wise they're only about like 1 millimeter or 2 difference, so it's really completely negligible. They're virtually interchangeable as far as you can tell. But internally, they did something amazing with the new one. The autofocus on this is wicked fast. So if you look at this video where I'm comparing side by side the old 27mm on the left and the new one on the right, both mounted to the same camera, and I'm activating the focus with the press of the shutter button each time, and you can see when the lenses lock into focus. And notice that the old one has this noticeable lag between trying to activate and actually locking in, and that's because it does something that I call chatter, where the front element moves in and out before it finds the right spot. Well, this new lens doesn't do that. Boom, it's just there in focus. Absolutely incredible. And when I did the walk around in my neighborhood, I got lots of really great fun shots, and it's incredibly sharp. Okay, and like in this particular picture, this was at the minimum focus distance. I got as close as I possibly could, which officially is 34 centimeters, which is about 13 inches. And you can see there is absolutely no loss of sharpness all the way at minimum focus. The lens comes with 2 lens hoods in the box. So there is your basic snap-in pinch type lens hood that goes on like that. But the lens also comes with this little dome-shaped screw-in lens hood to prevent flare and give you a little extra protection. And then there is a slip-on lens cap that goes on top of that lens hood. So you get all of that in the box. And here's the most amazing part about all of this. The new one is $50 less than the old one. Yes, the street price for the new 27mm f2.8 will be $399.95. Thank you, Fujifilm, for making something better at a lower cost. So, speaking of trying to do more with less, we also introduced the new Fujifilm X-E4 mirrorless camera. Small. My hand can cover it, okay? This is a successor to the X-E3 camera. So here's the E3 in silver, and the E4 will be both in silver and black as well. They are really almost identical to the millimeter in size, but there are some noticeable changes internally and externally. So first of all, the X-E4 gets the new 4th generation X-Trans CMOS sensor. So it has 26 million pixels as opposed to 24 megapixels on the E3. It also gets the 4th generation X-Trans processor. So everything about the XE4 is way faster than the XE3. It's literally as fast now as our XT4 for most purposes. Better AF, more film simulations, lower light autofocus, so the camera will focus down to -7 EV with the 50mm 1.0 lens. And the video spec on it is really incredibly great. It will do cinema 4K up to 30p at up to 200 megabit per second internal, and the internal bit depth is 8-bit, but through the HDMI out you can get clean 10-bit 422 4K video out of this little camera. Now with HD, this will do 240 frames per second, so at 24 frame playback, that's a 10x slowdown. Really vast improvements. And of course it does F-Log and does all the different film simulations just like the XT4. Now with those kind of specs and this little itty-bitty body, I think this is a superb camera for putting on a gimbal because it weighs practically nothing. So as much as I like the in-body image stabilization in many of our cameras, you know, a separate gimbal is still going to give you a steadier platform, and the less weight you have on there, the better it is for the motors in that gimbal. So the XE4 is a serious contender for doing handheld shots or when you really need to cram it into someplace small. Something the XE3 did not have was a flip-out screen. So the XE4 has a flip-out LCD, so it goes horizontal to look down, does 45 or does 90 degrees down, okay, and it also flips all the way forward into selfie mode. Okay, so that's really phenomenally new, and still it goes completely flush with the camera body. A few other changes. There is no rear command wheel on the XE4 like on the XE3. And the Q button moved up here to the top. And that was to make more room for the hinge for the tilting LCD. But also notice how completely flat the front of the camera is. Now, it's nicely textured, so I don't have any issues with grabbing it, okay? But it is different than the XE3, which had a bump in the front. So this really makes it more pocketable and probably a little more user-friendly for slipping into some gimbals and things. For people that really do want to have extra grip, as accessories, you can get a slip-on thumb rest that goes into the hot shoe that gives you a place to grab onto, or an additional metal hand grip that screws onto the bottom that has an Arca Swiss plate on it and a palm rest in the front to make it fatter. But even with longer lenses, I don't usually have a problem because I support the weight with my left hand instead of trying to hold it all with my right. Another addition is on the shutter speed wheel, we've added a P program exposure mode. And we've done away with the switch that was labeled auto. So basically auto on the XE3 was program mode, but now we've added the P selector on the shutter speed. So this camera will be $849.95. And if you get it as a kit with the new 27mm f2.8, you get the lens for only $200 more. So the body lens kit of the E4 and the 27mm will be $1,049.95. Okay? Now, I put the lens on here because to me there's one really important comparison, and that is to compare this camera to the X100V, which has the built-in 23mm f2 lens. So this is a 27mm 2.8, so it's a little bit slower and not quite as wide, but I think the XE4 is a very, very attractive camera for those of you that don't want to spend the money for the X100V and who aren't turned on with the optical viewfinder option that this camera gives you. So I've always liked the rangefinder style body because of the eyepiece being up here in the corner. So when I put it up to my eye, and I'm a right eye shooter, my nose is out of the way. Also means I have a very easy time keeping my left eye open, and this is a technique that many street photographers and photojournalists learn. Also, because it's off to the side, it's real easy to get your thumb onto the LCD and do things with swipes and touch modes and move the autofocus point around. So I really like the XE4, and I'm looking forward to it coming. The third item introduced at the end of January was a new zoom lens, the likes of which we have never had before, and it is the XF70-300mm f4 to 5.6. So for me, the logical comparison in our lineup would be the new 70-300 to the XF55-200. So the 55-200 obviously is a little wider, okay, but this one gives you 100 more millimeters on the long end, okay. That is a 50% increase, but with only a very fractional change in f-stop. The 55-200 is a 3.548. This is an f4.56. So almost virtually identical, but size-wise, you see, we're talking about maybe a ½ inch in overall length difference, and they are the same weight. But you can see in these comparisons the additional range you get in zoomability, showing you the 70 and at the 200 millimeter mark that you get with the other lens, and then going to the 300 millimeter focal length. And also the XF70-300 is compatible with the two XF teleconverters that we make. So here, for example, you see it all the way out at 300 millimeters, and then with the addition of the 1.4 teleconverter to make it 420 millimeters. This becomes a really good travel lens when you're going backpacking or camping or something like that. The 55-200 has long been my choice for that. It's a great companion for the 18-55 zoom lens, but the 70-300 might just take its place. And the important thing also is that the 70-300 has much faster autofocus because it has linear motors, and it is also weather sealed, where the 55-200 is not. It has a locking zoom ring, so you can enable that so it won't drift when you're carrying it on your shoulder. And the price of this is going to be $799.95. So it is $100 more than the 55-200, but certainly something worthy of consideration. So the XE4 camera will be out in the middle of March 2021, and the two new lenses will be out at the end of March. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.